Don't do the do before you say I do. The Date 3 Challenge. Intimacy and physical touch.
Stick around till the end for all the juicy details, where to go, what to do, and everything you need to make this date unforgettable.
Oh, and who's picking up the coffee? Trust me, baby, you don't want to miss it.
They say love dies with a bang, but sometimes it slips away quietly. No screaming matches, no dramatic breakups, just silence.
Let's talk about the real heartbreaker in relationships that no one's warning you about. It's subtle, it's sneaky, and yes, it could be in your relationship right now.
To help us with our exploration, here are a few questions to bear in mind. Sex before marriage. Is it harmless fun? A modern rite of passage? Or the silent killer of true intimacy? Let's talk about what nobody's telling you, because your future relationship might depend on it. What if everything we've been told about love, sex, and commitment was missing one big truth?
What if I told you the biggest relationship mistake happens before the wedding? Have you heard the saying that premarital sex is like sucking on an orange? It starts out firm, sweet, juicy, but sure enough, the sucker dumps that orange once the juice runs out and it becomes soft and soggy. Useless. Today, we're diving into one of the most misunderstood and controversial topics in modern love: intimacy and physical touch. We'll explore culture, science, faith, statistics, and how your decisions today shape your love tomorrow.
What if waiting was not old-fashioned but powerful? And what if marriage wasn't the end of love, but the beginning of real intimacy?
What if real love thrives on intentional timing, not impulse? What if waiting is the greatest gift you could ever give your future spouse? What if the do before the I do is what's destroying your chance at lasting love?
So before you move in, before you undress your heart, watch this video to the end. It just might change everything you believe about love.
Welcome back to the 8-Date Challenge, where we explore 8 pillars of love that build strong, lasting relationships.
Today is the Date 3 Challenge, and we're diving deep into a question that's both ancient and modern. Don't do the do before you say I do.
This question strikes at the heart of purpose and purity in relationships. We boldly discuss premarital sex, cohabitation, and the real purpose of marriage.
In this Date 3 of the 8-Date Challenge, we uncover the real deal about sex, love, and long-term commitment.
If you don't know where the rain began, you cannot know where it stopped. The Nigerian Igbo proverb guides us. Another African proverb instructs, the one who drums for the dance must know when the rhythm breaks. So, we begin our exploration equipped with a comprehensive understanding of the rhythms of times, cultures, beliefs, and what the world thinks.
Therefore, we ask, what are the diverse socio-cultural views, religious and global perspectives on sex before marriage? African, Asian, Middle Eastern, Western.
We navigate Africa's rich proverbial wisdom and the sacredness of the marital bed. Asian and Eastern intricacies, honor, tradition, family, and Western normalizations, sexual liberation, and the modern mentality of try before you buy.
Aha, not forgetting multi-generational perspectives, elders versus Gen Zs. We address the modern confusion, convenience versus commitment.
We observe that in every corner of the world, Love appears to take on many human forms, and so do the human rules that govern it. However, our global tour reveals a common thread. All humans, cultures, and traditions have wrestled with the question of when love should lead to sex and when it shouldn't. Different worlds, same struggles.
In many African traditions, intimacy was seen not just as pleasure but as power. Something sacred, something reserved. Sexual boundaries were protected, not just by elders and parents, but by the entire community. Virginity was honored not as shame, but as a sacred trust. The Igbo philosophy of Igwebuike teaches that collective morality supports individual integrity.
That's so true. In fact, another Igbo proverb highlights that a girl who is not spoken for is not for speaking to. Among the Maori of New Zealand, public intimacy was taboo. In the Philippines, traditional courtship could last months, even years before a kiss.
Today, that tension still exists between ancient wisdom and modern hookup culture.
But the oldest book ever written must have something to say. Yes, that's the Bible, right?
Right, so what is the biblical view on intimacy, covenant, and sacred union?
Great. Let's explore purity across faiths. Not just religious teachings, but a wide range of perspectives on love, freedom, and sexual boundaries. In Christianity, sexual purity before marriage is both a moral and spiritual principle. The Bible repeatedly calls believers to honor God with their bodies.
So what are the consequences of intimacy without commitment, and the strength of waiting with purpose?
Okay, let's go deeper. You see, in the Bible, intimacy is a covenant act, not a contract, not a casual pastime, but a sacred union. Do not arouse or awaken love before it's time. The wisest man that ever walked the face of this earth instructs.
Yes, that's King Solomon in Song of Solomon chapter 8 verse 4, a poetic plea to honor timing, intention, and trust.
Exactly, and you know what? Our parents knew this timeless truth. That's why they bequeathed to us this proverbial wisdom saying, the soup tastes best when it's allowed to simmer.
Some might say, well, that's Old Testament stuff. Spare me, that's so old school.
But it's not though, and nothing could be further from the truth. Because the New Testament Bible has this to say in Hebrews chapter 13 verse 4, give honor to marriage and remain faithful to one another in marriage. God will surely judge people who are immoral and those who commit adultery.
And 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verses 18 to 20 goes even further to shout dramatically, run from sexual sin. No other sin so clearly affects the body as this one does. For sexual immorality is a sin against your own body. Don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a high price. So you must honor God with your body.
You see, friends, the biblical emphasis is on the spiritual, emotional, and covenantal significance of sexual purity. The 21st century King James Bible admonishes in Hebrews chapter 13 verse 4, marriage is honorable among all, so keep the marriage bed undefiled.
In other words, sex before marriage defiles the marriage bed, just as sex with anyone other than your lawfully wedded husband or wife defiles the marriage bed. Sex outside of marriage isn't just discouraged, it's shown to confuse, complicate, and often destroy the foundation of trust. Sex outside marriage distorts the divine circle and the natural cycle of love, timing, and covenant. Marriage is the covering that protects the beauty of intimacy. It creates the space where vulnerability becomes strength.
In the final analysis, biblical love isn't anti-pleasure, but pro-purpose. The biblical narrative is intimacy as a covenant, not casual sex, but a lifelong union where the husband and wife become one flesh, Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. Real love is protective, patient, and purposeful. Physical touch is powerful, but it was designed to seal a bond, not start one.
But what about those who may argue that this is just a narrow biblical Christian worldview? Surely that can't be the whole picture.
Okay, so let's explore other religious and modern perspectives on premarital intimacy, purity, harmony, respecting self, spirit, and shared destiny. Judaism views sexual intimacy as holy but restricted to marriage, the mitzvah, divine commandment, and blessed union. Islam teaches that sexual relations are a sacred act, a solemn contract, and a gift from God, permissible only within the bond of marriage, nikah, Quran 17 verse 32. Quran 30 verse 21 goes on to describe spouses as providing tranquility and compassion to one another. Hinduism honors celibacy, brahmacharya, as a virtue, especially before marriage, associated with spiritual discipline. The union of two souls in marriage is regarded as a sacrament, sanskara, a sacred duty and a rite of passage. And sex, when misused, disrupts the balance of karma.
I hear all that, but what about Buddhism? Surely they differ.
Perhaps, but although Buddhism doesn't have a universal or rigid law regarding premarital sex, it does offer strong ethical guidance, especially through the 5 precepts, Pankashla, which all lay Buddhists are encouraged to follow. In Buddhism, true love honors restraint. Sex without commitment risks harm, but mindful love waits, respects, and protects. To refrain from sexual misconduct is the 3rd precept, a core Buddhist guideline related to sexual behavior. This entails things like mindfulness over impulse, respect and commitment, freedom from harm, and disciplined living or renunciation.
Now let's go even further to examine atheistic views on premarital sex, as well as the New Age beliefs on love, freedom, sexuality, and self-expression. Atheism, by definition, holds no religious doctrine, and so moral decisions are based on personal or societal ethics rather than divine command. For many atheists, premarital sex is not inherently immoral. Instead, what matters is mutual consent, emotional maturity, and honesty.
True, but recall, The Selfish Gene by renowned atheist and evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins emphasizes that emotions like love have evolutionary advantages, but are now expressed in more nuanced personal ways beyond reproduction. Philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre, an atheist existentialist, argue that freedom is the very essence of human existence, but it comes with the burden of responsibility. Expression is encouraged as long as it respects others' rights and autonomy, aligned with secular ethical systems like John Stuart Mill's harm principle.
But in the New Age movement, love is often described as energy and sex, a spiritual exchange rather than a restricted moral category. Boundaries are fluid, and emotional authenticity is more important than cultural convention.
Again, absolutely correct in that observation. However you see, the New Age movement is a broad, eclectic spiritual movement that emerged in the 20th century. It incorporates ideas from Eastern religions, mysticism, psychology, and metaphysics.
New Age freedom is about awakening your true self and being unbound by societal conditioning or traditional dogma. The idea of living your truth is central. Freedom to pursue personal paths of growth, healing, and purpose. A sacred act of becoming your authentic self, or fulfilling your soul's purpose. Eckhart Tolle and other New Age thinkers emphasize being present in love rather than bound by institution. The chakra system in New Age philosophy places sexual energy at the second chakra, sacral, believed to influence creative and relational flow.
Agreed, but don't forget that while spiritual freedom is celebrated, the risks of uncommitted sexual expression, emotionally and physically, remain real. In the final analysis, there is a common thread of purity across faiths. Many belief systems agree that timing matters, and it is settled that spiritual connection trumps physical exploration. Even some modern psychology suggests that casual sex can lead to attachment injuries, anxiety, and long-term dissatisfaction. This fact rings through an important African proverb which says, "If you climb up a good tree, you are given the push." In other words, When you're doing something worthwhile, you'll receive support. So, purity and premarital chastity must be worthwhile. Hence the unanimous support across time, faiths, and cultures. Freedom is not doing what we want, but choosing what is best. But what does science say about sex, bonding, and long-term happiness?
Well, why don't we explore the data together? Can we get into what science has to say about all this?
Okay, you want the science? Great. Let's explore the neurochemical effects of sex. We're talking dopamine, neurochemistry of oxytocin, false intimacy, bonding, and premature attachment. And while on that journey, we must also notice the impact of premarital sex on clarity, conflict, and long-term trust. We reference studies like NIH, the Journal of Family Psychology, and Pew Research. Did you know that during sex, your brain releases oxytocin, the same hormone that bonds mothers to their babies? Did you know that frequent unmarried sexual partners can reduce pair bonding capability?
And this is a research-backed fact?
Absolutely. In fact, research also shows that couples who wait have 22% higher marital stability. That means every time you do the do, your body is trying to bond with that person.
Even if your mind is not?
Yes, and that's biology, not just belief. Research also reveals that the psychological effects of premarital sex include comparison fatigue, emotional detachment, and the cohabitation effect. Studies show that couples who delay sex until they marry have greater relationship stability, higher satisfaction, and lower divorce rates.
Oh, wow. No wonder African proverbial wisdom gives this insightful advice. When a handshake reaches the elbow, it becomes wrestling.
Spot on. You see, this Nigeria Igbo proverb is a cautionary tale that boundaries matter. What begins as innocent may turn inappropriate if not checked, and the present and future consequences may be unpredictably harmful or disastrous. For good measure, here are some more facts. According to the Institute for Family Studies, couples who cohabit and have sex before marriage are 33% more likely to divorce.
Can't argue with that because statistics, they say, don't lie. But what does science say in hard numbers?
Absolutely. In this chapter and the next, we will focus more intently on what the statistics and the science behind them are saying. We thoroughly examine details concerning marriage success rates in regard to premarital sex versus abstinence. In other words, sexual activity before versus after marriage. Who thrives more? While on that journey, we must note some common reasons for cohabiting: cost, convenience, and fear of marriage, and examine the divorce rates and trends in relation to cohabiting couples versus married ones. In other words, cohabitation versus marriage success rates. Ever wondered if waiting for intimacy actually pays off?
Yes. But are there any research-backed benefits of delayed intimacy, including stats on regret, sexual dissatisfaction, and emotional instability?
Oh my, the stats might surprise you. But as you all want to go there, let's take a deep dive into the science of waiting and why delayed intimacy works. Insights from Harvard and the University of Denver studies are quite shocking indeed. We glean from authoritative analysis of large-scale datasets and research outcomes from places like the World Bank, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBER, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. We also draw understanding from research by Dr. Scott Stanley and Galina Rhodes on cohabitation research and the sliding versus deciding problem. Did you know that couples who wait until marriage report significantly higher satisfaction, trust, and stability than those who don't? And cohabiting couples are 46% more likely to divorce? Here are some facts. The National Marriage Project report, a study published in 2020 by the Institute for Family Studies, revealed that couples who waited until marriage reported 20% higher relationship satisfaction and had more stable marriages than those who did not. And get this. According to the Journal of Family Psychology, couples who delayed sex enjoyed better communication and were less likely to experience emotional volatility or sexual dissatisfaction later on. A study found that couples who abstained from sex before marriage were 31% more likely to have stable relationships. Another study from Cornell University revealed that 40% of couples who cohabited and engaged in early sexual activity regretted the pace of their physical relationship.
On the flip side, cohabiting couples have a 33% higher divorce rate than those who wait until after marriage. The National Center for Health Statistics, NCHS, CDC's 2010 report titled Cohabitation, Marriage, Divorce and Remarriage in the United States presents the following findings. 95% of Americans had sex before marriage. Couples who had sex before marriage are 15% more likely to divorce. Among women aged 15 to 44 who began their first premarital cohabitation, within 5 years, 53% transitioned to marriage. 40% dissolved the relationship, and only 7% remained cohabiting.
On the flip side, a study published in the Journal of Family Psychology shows that couples who delayed sexual activity until marriage reported 22% higher relationship stability, 20% higher relationship satisfaction, 15% better sexual quality, 12% better communication.
Why is this so, though?
Well, the reason is quite simple. It's because intimacy without intention creates false security, but no real commitment. Little wonder why ancient African wisdom offers this advice. A girl who is not spoken for is not for speaking to. This speaks of respect for commitment and boundaries in courtship.
But are you aware that cohabitation is the reality of modern trends?
Yes, and we are also aware that cohabitation is one of the biggest incubators of premarital sex.
Perhaps so, but the formidable argument is, if we live together, won't it make marriage easier? Despite higher divorce rates, there is evidence that the timing of divorces has shifted. As people marry later, often after a period of cohabitation, the marriages that do occur may begin on a more stable footing.
Yes, hence in this chapter we trace cultural history, including bride price, rituals, sacred vows. We examine religion versus postmodernism.
That's all good, but is marriage outdated or misunderstood? Where are the real stories and facts backing them, like the average age of marriage and its effects on happiness?
Okay, great question. Now, these are not scientific theories, but verifiable facts. To support this point, let's explore more specific real-life stories, data and information about genuine trends and the benefits of marriage in today's world.
Because numbers never lie, but they sure can surprise, right?
Haha, you caught the drift well. Did you know that in the 1950s, the average age for a first marriage was just 22 for men and 20 for women, according to data from the US Census Bureau? But today, it's 30 for men and 28 for women, and still rising in many developed countries. That's a hard fact from the 2023 Pew Research.
But that's America, though. What do you expect?
The declining marriage rates are not just an American issue. It's a global trend, a worldwide shift in marriage patterns. Across the globe, fewer people are marrying than in past decades. The OECD and national statistics data indicate that in 1970, most countries experienced 7 to 10 marriages per 1,000 people. However, today, many have only 3 to 5 marriages per 1,000. In fact, marriage rates are at historic lows in many nations. This long-term decline accelerated during events such as the 2020 pandemic, when weddings briefly dropped by about 20% on average. But even apart from such shocks, the trend has been steadily downward. Almost all regions have witnessed a decrease in the prevalence of marriage. A chart of several countries illustrates a significant decline in marriage rates from 1970 to 2020. People who marry now tend to do so at older ages than in the past, not only in America but also globally. A few decades ago, the global average age for brides was in their early 20s. Now, the mean age at first marriage is approximately 30.7 years for women and 33.1 years for men across OECD countries. Today, it's common for couples not to wed until their late 20s or 30s. A stark contrast to earlier generations. As formal marriage declines, many couples are choosing to live together without marrying. In recent decades, cohabitation has become widespread in regions where it was once rare. For example, in the United States, only 0.1% of young adults cohabited in 1968, but by 2018, nearly 9.4% did. Similarly, in England and Wales, about 90% of people who married in 2022 had already been living together beforehand. Social attitudes have liberalized. A Pew survey even found a majority of Americans now favor giving unmarried couples the same legal rights as married couples. This shift reflects a broader global trend. Partnerships outside of marriage, cohabiting unions, have grown in prevalence across Europe, North America, Oceania, and beyond.
So beyond succumbing to premarital sex, what really goes wrong when couples move in together too soon instead of marrying?
To answer this insightful question, let's go back to the sliding versus deciding dilemma we cited earlier. According to leading researchers Dr. Scott Stanley and Dr. Galina Rhodes of the University of Denver, it often comes down to something called sliding versus deciding. Key insight from Stanley, Rhodes, and Markman from their 2006 publication in the Journal of Family Psychology shows that sliding into cohabitation, rather than making a clear mutual decision, leads to lower relationship satisfaction, higher conflict, and a greater risk of eventual separation. Sliding often happens without deep discussion. One person brings over a toothbrush, then a suitcase. Then suddenly they're paying rent.
But what's the big deal?
Well, Stanley and Rhodes found that sliding couples often avoid difficult conversations like commitment, marriage goals, or financial expectations because the path forward wasn't clearly defined.
So why do people live together before marriage, even with all of these hard facts speaking against such moves?
Reasons include fear, economics, pressure, and believing trying before buying reduces risk.
But research says otherwise. Cohabitation doesn't prepare people for marriage. It often replaces it.
Exactly, because comfort without covenant leads to complacency, not commitment. One consequence of more cohabitation is a soaring share of children born to unmarried parents. In 1970, less than 10% of births in most OECD countries were outside marriage. By 2020, that figure exceeded 30% in most of those countries and 50% plus in some. One notable exception is Japan, where out-of-wedlock births remain under 3%, reflecting cultural norms.
Now this reminds me of the African cautionary proverb about the elephants and the grass. This wisdom suggests that cohabiting couples, elephants, should not let the grass, innocent children, suffer by bringing them into such unstructured, uncertain arrangements.
That's a profound connection you made there. Looking even deeper, one finds on the flip side of these trends a rise in adults who delay or forego marriage altogether. In Western and East Asian countries especially, a growing minority remain never married into their 30s and 40s. For example, among women born in 1990 in England and Wales, only 29% were married by age 30, compared to over 90% of women born in 1940 who had married by that age. Economic independence, urbanization, and changing values about family and personal freedom all contribute to more people remaining single. Many such individuals may cohabit or date, but do not formally marry. This delay or decline in marriage is most pronounced in highly developed secular societies whereas in some developing regions marriage is still nearly universal by middle age. Overall, however, the global pattern is clear. Marriage is no longer a given milestone for everyone as alternative lifestyles and partnerships gain acceptance. Although committed relationships persist, a higher proportion are informal unions rather than legal marriages. Accompanying the drop in new marriages has been an increase in divorce in many parts of the world. Once stigmatized or legally difficult, divorce has become more common and socially accepted. In almost every OECD country, the divorce rate today is higher than it was in 1970.
But wait, why was marriage created? What exactly is the purpose of marriage? What is the correlation between marriage and happiness? And why should I wait for marriage to do the do? Is marriage truly sacred or just downright silly? After all, it's only a piece of paper, innit?
The short answer to those questions lie in the essence of marriage in ancient cultures: protection, procreation, purpose.
So, you mean that marriage isn't just a party with cake and a white dress?
Nope, those are just bubbles.
Then surely it's just a ceremonial piece of paper signed on the wedding day.
Absolutely not. It is an important piece of legal document, no doubt, but that's not it either.
What about those amazing rocks and rings?
The expensive diamond rings are nice, and before we get carried away with the half-truth and myth about diamonds lasting forever, no, that's not it.
Oh no, now you've completely burst all the bubbles, even the biggest one. Can we go back in time and see what cultural history highlights?
Of course. In many African traditions, the bride price was more than just a dowry. It symbolized commitment, responsibility, and the value of the woman. Ancient Greeks and Romans held elaborate public rituals, while in Jewish tradition, marriage was sealed under a chuppah with sacred vows. From the perspective of religion versus postmodernism, marriage is often perceived as trivial, or sometimes regarded as outdated or merely a legal formality. However, statistics don't lie. Here are some additional compelling statistics. A consistent finding across research is that married people often report higher levels of happiness and life satisfaction compared to those who are unmarried. A 2021 NBER research report shows that married people report higher life satisfaction than singles or cohabiting couples. And it's not just about happiness. Married people also tend to live longer, enjoy better health, and even earn more.
So beyond happiness and health benefits, marriage can also bring economic advantages.
Sure, that's because couples who marry are often more likely to pool resources and specialize in ways that improve their financial stability. Studies have documented that married men tend to have higher earnings than similar single men, and married couples accumulate more wealth over time than singles. Pew Research found that married couples are 3 times more likely to describe themselves as very happy than their unmarried peers. The National Marriage Project revealed that people who marry in their late 20s and practice delayed intimacy report the highest happiness scores. And you asked for real-life stories, right? Now meet Isaac and Miriam, married 45 years. They waited, they built, and today they still dance together every Saturday. In Ghana, a 92-year-old grandmother shared that her happiest years were spent with the man she married at 18, with their love deepening long after the wedding. In Japan, a 40-year married couple attributed their success to daily rituals: morning tea together and one unwavering rule: never go to bed angry. You see, African and other culturally communal concepts harness the power of restraint for unity. Igwe Buike philosophy, I am because we are, and the Ubuntu ideal, unity, dignity, and sacred belonging, draw attention to emotional safety, physical health, stronger communication, and shared values. Modern shifts tend toward partnership, support, and shared vision. You see, across time and cultures, marriage was never just about feelings. It was about legacy, loyalty, covenant.
In our postmodern world, some say marriage is outdated, but maybe it's just misunderstood. Biblically, marriage is a picture of God's faithfulness, two people becoming one, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Cultures have historically embraced the creative reality of marriage for legacy, stability, and accountability. Ubuntu's truth: I am because we are, and we are because we commit. Togetherness, not possession. Marriage is not a trap, it's a transformative journey.
You see, guys, marriage is not the end of dating. It's the beginning of the best dates of your life. As the proverb goes, the soup tastes best when it's allowed to simmer. So, is marriage outdated or just misunderstood? Surely you now know the definite answer. And for those who think the Gen Zs don't get it, here are some more facts and surprises. Fact: according to a 2022 YouGov report, 72% of Gen Z say they still want to get married someday. Fact: the OECD 2022 report also revealed that the global average length of marriage is 11 years, but couples who marry later in life tend to last longer. Fact: the Urban Institute's 2020 report revealed that married people are more likely to own a home and build long-term wealth.
Aha, now I get it. While the institution of marriage is globally in flux, it remains deeply valued in many societies. So maybe it's not that marriage is obsolete, but that we haven't truly prepared couples for what makes it thrive.
You just hit the bull's eye. So whether you're single, dating, or deep into married life, the real reward isn't just the ceremony. It's the commitment, the legacy, and the love that grows with time.
There you have it, folks. Marriage, still sacred, still strong. So don't do the do before you say I do, not because you're scared, but because you're strong. But don't stay silent about it either. Talk, reflect, grow, because real love waits, not out of fear, but out of faith in something greater.
And when you wait for the right time, with the right person, for the right reasons, with the benefit of insightful discussions, the reward is intimacy, connection, and joy that lasts. That's the real reward.
Redefining purity is not shame-based, but power-based. There is a reason why intimacy in marriage creates deeper trust, commitment, and peace. The strength and joy of intentionality in love.
You see, real love waits. Not because it's old school, but because it works. Love built on purpose lasts longer than lust fed by impulse.
Now let's get into the Date 3 challenge. Location.
Find a romantic place. It could be public or private, but make sure it feels romantic. You can choose a serene walk in nature or a cozy living room.
Activity.
Journal or discuss what role sex should play in your future or current relationship.
Caution.
No physical touch is required, just deep conversation.
Reflect on your values.
What does sex mean to you? What boundaries matter most before marriage? How do you want to experience love emotionally, spiritually, and physically?
Challenge questions.
What's your belief about sex before marriage, and where did it come from? How has your past shaped your present? What are you willing to do differently going forward?
Discuss with your spouse or partner to see what their optimal sexual frequency is. Don't shy away from discussing any sexual fantasies or quirks you may have.
Discuss your boundaries, beliefs, and intentions bearing the following African proverbs in mind. 1. When a handshake reaches the elbow, it becomes wrestling. 2. Premarital sex is like sucking on an orange. It starts out firm, sweet, juicy. But sure enough, the sucker dumps that orange once the juice runs out, and it becomes soft and soggy, useless. 3. If you climb a good tree, you are given a push.
So be cautious and ensure your purpose and intentions are noble and in the pursuit of a good cause. Love conquers all. If you dare to date with intention, your next step starts here. Join the 8-Date Challenge.
You've heard the research. You've felt the weight of culture, conviction, and consequence. But beyond the stats and the science lies your story.
The truth is, love doesn't just happen. Love is built, one intentional date at a time. So are you ready to build?
Date 3 has challenged us to pause, reflect, and rethink everything we thought we knew about intimacy. Not just physical, but emotional, spiritual, and committed connection.
Whether you're single, dating, or married, this is your invitation. Take the 8-date challenge. Discover what real love is made of. If you are new to this channel or the 8-date challenge, if you would like to learn more, then watch the videos that will pop up on your screen in the next few slides.
Comment below what struck you most from this episode. Was it the science, the scriptures, the stories?
Then share this video with someone who needs this truth today. Don't keep this love lesson to yourself. Together, let's rewrite the relationship story one date at a time.
Eight unforgettable dates. 8 supportive pillars. 1 solid relationship. Subscribe, like, and join the challenge. Now, see you on the Date 4 challenge. Family and upbringing.